Well, good evening, my friends. It is Wade Heath for the Kingdom Report, joining you here once again in the most unconventional, unprecedented of times as the Walt Disney Company has decided to go ahead and shut down parks worldwide. Pretty startling when you think about it. Certainly not something that we have seen in the modern age. It's been a very long time since either domestic park here in the United States has shut down for any period of time. The last time the Disneyland Resort did so was on September 11th, 2001, and Walt Disney World much the same. I know that since then the Walt Disney World Resort has shut down just a handful of times for hurricane relief as hurricanes blew through the Central Florida area and became a real problem during that time. There were, I think, 2 or 3 instances where that occurred. So very unusual for the Disney Company to move forward with shutting down parks, let alone across, the globe and here at home. Very unusual to have these circumstances sort of placed on our lap. But here we are. For those of you that were here earlier, waiting for the live stream to begin, just a quick note of apology there. It looks like we were having some technical hiccups, and suddenly we were logged out and just couldn't move forward. So we do apologize if you were hanging on waiting for all of this to begin. But here we are, and going to update you on everything that's happened today, because we continue to see all kinds of things going on across the Walt Disney Company and within the parks themselves as they gear up for shutdown. Now, as we have mentioned previously, Disneyland in Tokyo, Shanghai Disneyland, as well as Hong Kong Disneyland, all shut down currently. Disneyland Paris joining them this weekend, as well as the Disneyland Resort shutting down operations tomorrow, and then Walt Disney World following suit with their theme parks on Sunday. Catherine, so good to see you in our live chat, and for those of you that have any questions or any thoughts on all of this madness when it comes to the global closure amid the hysteria from COVID-19, go ahead and drop on into the live chat and let us know that you're here and what's on your mind, what you're thinking. This, again, is unprecedented times, so we're all just sort of dealing with it the best way we know how and trying to make sense of it, but lots to talk about that certainly happened today and certainly continued to be updated throughout the day. So one of the key things that occurred today, and we will get to all of this in long form, but one of the key things that happened today is Adventures by Disney, part of the Disney Parks and Experiences portfolio. Well, they ended up also announcing that they are going to cease operations. In addition to that, around the globe, more and more offices affiliated with Disney are shutting down. In addition to those, we are also seeing the Walt Disney Studios announcing the stoppage of production on several different films that are currently in the middle of being created, middle of being produced. We'll start here, though, with InsideTheMagic.net's story talking about the updates to guests who are affected, who are in and around the theme parks right now. The story begins by saying, you may have read yesterday that Disney Parks News on Twitter announced closures of the Disney parks. There was an immense wave of sadness, followed by a bit of anger, panic, and depression. Many vacations were affected, both in real time and in advance of some guest departure. And here we are, attempting to detail the Disneyland Resort updates in terms of guest vacations, accessibility, and annual pass holder concerns. Now, that is certainly something that has gotten a lot of attention. The annual pass holder base, especially in Disneyland, it's over 1 million people. That's not an exaggeration. There is over 1 million people who happen to have annual passes in the Southern California region, and some even in Northern California that have those passes and like to use them for frequent trips down south. And so the big concern has become, well, wait a second, you're taking away for the better part of a month our pass holder privileges. What's going to happen? Is Disney going to compensate us? Is Disney going to allow for us the opportunity to get that time back? Because, they do pay for it. Everybody does end up paying for it. So, at any rate, the story continues here, saying that obviously on Thursday, it was a dark day indeed for the Disney parks in the Eastern Hemisphere. Disneyland Resort announced parks closures, as well as Walt Disney World Resort, Disney Cruise Line, and Disneyland Paris. That all came Monday, and there will be no Disney parks open to guests. Come Monday, there will be no Disney parks open to guests. Many of the shopping and dining venues will continue to operate, and that is certainly something that we've talked about in previous broadcasts, where Disney Springs, as well as the downtown Disney district in Anaheim, are going to continue operating in the middle of all of this. As odd as that sounds, where the theme parks are shutting down and the hotels at Disneyland will be ceasing operations on Monday, Downtown Disney in Anaheim will remain open. As we detailed yesterday, though, there's a great deal of speculation that a lot of those third-party businesses are probably going to bow out gracefully and send their people home out of an abundance of caution as well. Epic Gamer Squad joins us in chat, was with us yesterday, mentioning that they were going to be looked at as a cast member in Walt Disney World and going to be evaluated by a specialist to make sure that they did not have the COVID-19 virus. And good news, they say they are clean. Congratulations to you. That is wonderful news. And now going to be stationed at Walt Disney World's Yacht and Beach Club to push guests out. I'm sure Disney would put it a lot more diplomatically than that. But once again, congratulations to you working for Disney during this time. Probably a little stressful, given the fact that, once again, unprecedented closures are happening, shutdowns are occurring. Now, here are some of the updates. When it comes to the annual passes, at least on the West Coast, Disneyland Resort has some very concerned guests when it comes to their annual passes and what's going to be happening to them. You'll see here some tweets that have been collected by InsideTheMagic.net. One here saying, "Dear Disney, I would appreciate an annual pass extension. Sincerely, soon to be expired." Another one here saying, "We called. They said on Monday they will have more information regarding pass holders. For now, it's just for the people who booked hotel stays and bought tickets." Yeah, that definitely is something that I think I've mentioned in our live stream yesterday. All of this, in terms of Disney sort of pulling the plug on their parks being open, and all of this was very last minute, to the point that so many people in management, so many people in leadership within the resorts from coast to coast didn't even know it was about to happen. A lot of folks it took by surprise, and those announcements were just being sort of passed down to them. I know there were even a handful of leaders who had to hear about the shutdown via the media. Didn't even hear it from within first. So this was, I am willing to bet, a knee-jerk reaction to the governor's executive order in California, sort of shutting down congregations and any sort of events that extended beyond 250 people. So I'm sure this was Disney's way of saying, the executive order is out there, even though they said we were exempt from this executive order, which, as we had mentioned yesterday, didn't make a whole lot of sense. But even though we were exempt, Disney did do the right thing and pulled the plug on their theme parks, knowing that tens of thousands of people tend to congregate in all of these places, and it could very easily become a hotbed for the coronavirus to sort of expand. At any rate, it's good to know that we're in a place now where the parks are shutting down, and cast members and guests are being sort of sent away from the resorts for at least the next 2 weeks and 3 days. It's very interesting also to know that during that time there, at least on the West Coast, there is going to be some cast members on hand in the Esplanade, the area between Disney California Adventure and Disneyland Park. They will be there for all of those guests that are still coming to the resort that maybe didn't get the memo, and individuals that are looking for the resources, looking for the supports of a vacation that is just not going to happen at this point. So they are going to be there to support them and take care of them. It looks like Catherine in chat mentions that Black Tap in Downtown Disney in Anaheim will be open tomorrow for her business dinner. Congratulations, that's terrific news. As Disneyland does begin to shut down at this point, this is the final day of operation before the 2-week and 3-day shutdown. As Disneyland begins to close today, it should be noted that here in Southern California, where we are located, it has been a very rainy, very dreary couple of days here, very un-California-like. So knowing that, it's something that definitely played into a lot of guests going to the park today and had a dramatic effect on attendance, as rain typically does here. So far less guests than anticipated made it into the parks today, and it was just raining all day, so a lot of people just ended up staying away. One, for the weather, two, probably because of the chaos of coronavirus. But back to the story here via Inside the Magic regarding annual passes in Disneyland. They say later on in the day, guests were gathering online and sharing experiences, having called into Disneyland's helpline. Guest Kay Hernandez reported that on Monday, March 16th, Disneyland will have more information for their annual pass holders. And for now, Disney cast members are dealing with guests that have hotel reservations and tickets. Carla says, we called. They said on Monday they'll have more info regarding pass holders. So interesting, because Inside the Magic spoke to a guest relations cast member at Disneyland Park face-to-face. They said here that Disneyland Resort annual passes would indeed follow the same protocol and extend the length of closure, and the change fees would be waived. It's not going to be fun to wait to see what Disneyland's official statement says, but hopefully this cast member's information holds true. So for anybody that is having ticket issues, for anybody that is concerned about their vacation package and their tickets in general, I know that Disney is doing their best to not only refund but replace tickets in general. Obviously, Disneyland has a very different structure when it really sort of drills down into what tickets are offered on the West Coast, mainly because the crowds can't be contained by just 2 theme parks. So they have a multi-tiered system for the tickets, and sometimes when guests come to visit, they could be visiting on I think they're calling it a tier 1 through 4 now, so they could be visiting on a tier 4 day. A tier 4 day would be the most expensive day you could possibly visit, and then a tier 1 being the cheapest. And then I don't know necessarily, because they just released these here about a month ago, the new tier system, but I don't know how they determine what's a tier 2 and 3, but they have their own way about tickets. But at any rate, they definitely are replacing and refunding tickets as need be, and extending out and waiving any sort of issues that might come about for the tickets. And I'm convinced that annual pass holders are going to feel the same effect, that they are going to get to the annual pass holders. Like I said, there's over 1 million of them, folks, so hang in there, and they have to get themselves back to a good place in terms of just dealing with what they're dealing with right now. So, you've got like 25,000 cast members who now suddenly don't have work, and I think they're dealing with the scheduling madness at the moment, because as I understand it from my cast member friends, it sounds like whatever they were being scheduled to work for the next 2 weeks, because their schedule does come out 2 weeks in advance, whatever they were being scheduled to work for the next 2 weeks, that is what they were going to be paid by the company. So I think, if you were somebody that was taking a lot of additional time off, this would have hurt to have been taking that time off in the next 2 weeks, and not getting paid that extra cash that would have been coming in. So you take a gamble there, but I know that when it comes down to the annual passes, they will get to them. I'm convinced of it. It'd be bad PR, it'd be bad guest service. The annual pass holder base is too big to ignore and let something like that happen to them, or if they didn't follow up and do the right thing and take care of annual passes, then for sure they would bite the hand of Disney, and it would definitely get nasty real quick. So I'm convinced that they will come around, they will do the right thing, and they'll take care of the annual pass holders. And They'll make sure that either refunds are issued or more than likely, Jacob, I see your comment here in chat asking about it. More than likely, they're going to just waive or implement an additional month's worth. They'll probably overcompensate. That's kind of the Disney way. So they'll probably overcompensate even with maybe an additional month added to everybody's annual pass at this point. So again, a little bit of speculation. But I definitely think that that's something that we're going to see when they can get around to it. As I had mentioned earlier, this has been very difficult for everybody operationally on the ground and all of the leaders up and down the Disney Parks and Experiences chain, because this all happened in the blink of an eye. And so barely anybody had time to react, and everyone is still trying to react at this point. You'll see here also concluding in this story, it says Disneyland Resort offers official statements and guidance here on on their travel information page. If you're a guest that bought a hotel and ticket package with an authorized Disney vacation planner, the vacation planner must call the call center to modify and cancel any reservations, and please contact your TA. If you bought a complete hotel and ticket package from Disney directly, you will be able to get a refund for that package. Alternatively, if you bought only park tickets, those tickets do not expire, and you can use them at a later date. So definitely things to keep in your back pocket. I think that covers a wide spectrum of guests that may be affected, and Disney does ask that you call for cancellations by contacting them at the Walt Disney Travel Company at that 714-520-5050 number. All things that definitely are important to remember, and especially in order to understand that the cast members that are going to be at the receiving end of this number are probably completely overwhelmed and getting all kinds of calls right now, and no doubt the folks that they're dealing with are probably extremely frustrated and rather upset. So mind your manners, please, if you do reach out to the Walt Disney Travel Company. Looks like Jacob is mentioning, do we know, as the Disney cats will be cared for while the park is closed. So, Jacob, good news. Park staff and a lot of maintenance teams and custodial, as I understand it, they're going to be using a lot of this time to fix up the park and do some maintenance and keep things looking good and touching up some paint. So, as far as like maintenance and anybody that works typically like overnights, that's going to continue to happen because there's enough what's the term of the moment, there's enough spatial awareness, is that what the term everybody's using in media right now, where folks are not getting close to other individuals while out in public. Social distancing is the word. That's what I'm looking for. Social distancing is what people are doing right now. So there, especially with the overnight cast at Disneyland and Walt Disney World, there are enough of them spread out over the course of the parks and resorts that they're not necessarily all condensed and on top of each other, kind of like park guests would be during the day. So as I understand it, they're going to continue to come in, and during that time, yes, the cats of Disneyland that exterminate the rodent population, not Mickey, of course, but exterminate the rodent population, are still going to be cared for and taken care of. So that's something that I know I've heard a time or two so far already. What's going to happen to the cats? What's going to happen to those creatures? The resort is still going to be buzzing with work. A lot of people are still going to be there, so nothing to fear. It's just the gates are going to be closed. We see here from KTLA.com, KTLA5, a local CW affiliate in Los Angeles. They speak here about Disneyland California Adventure closing beginning tomorrow due to the coronavirus concerns, as well as Universal Studios just up the road in Hollywood. The story says here, Disney on Thursday announced it'll be closing Disneyland and California Adventure Park from Saturday through the end of the month as cases of the novel coronavirus continue to rise in Southern California and nationwide. It's just the theme park's fourth unscheduled closing in Disneyland's 65-year history. The move was made shortly after Governor Gavin Newsom issued an executive order calling for the cancellation of large, non-essential public gatherings in California, though he exempted theme parks and casinos from the directive. Can you imagine how gross casinos must be in terms of germs? Like, I've always thought about that, when we don't have a pandemic. So, don't know how casinos were exempt, but it's the same sort of shock as, well, how were theme parks exempt? That doesn't make sense. Quote, after carefully reviewing the guidelines of the Governor of California's executive order and in the best interest of our guests and employees, we are proceeding with the closure of Disneyland Park and Disney California Adventure. A statement from the theme park read, the company emphasized there have been no cases of COVID-19 linked to the resorts. So keep this in mind. While they say there have been no cases of COVID-19 linked to the resort, that probably should have read yet. There are way too many people who in the last 2.5 months, international guests even, who have been at the resort, who I guarantee somebody was a carrier of this. Somebody had to have had it at some point. I say yet because I think not enough people have been tested. I'm sure some folks, unfortunately, probably either have it or are carrying it right now. So I'm pretty convinced of that. The odds are not in their favor. They are definitely in a position where I think it's just a matter of time before we hear that happened and that some cast members did test positive. I know that Epic Gamer Squad in chat yesterday mentioned that they had heard 2 Walt Disney World cast members may have been infected. So, those are things that I'm sure Disney will keep very quiet because they don't want to create more hysteria than there already is. So they won't be public about that probably at all. But the announcement was lauded by Governor Newsom, who said Disney made the, quote, right call in the interest of public health. Both Anaheim theme parks will be closing Saturday morning and will remain shut through the end of the month, according to the statement. Disneyland Resort hotels will stay open until Monday to accommodate guests who need to make other arrangements. And Downtown Disney will not be closed, as we have mentioned several times. The resort assured guests that it will work with them to change or cancel their visits, and it will also provide refunds to anyone who had a hotel booking while the theme parks are shut down. Employees, of course, will be paid during the closure, and Disney had previously announced that a series of measures were in place to mitigate the threat of coronavirus at both theme parks, noting that it generally maintains high standards of cleanliness to prevent the spread of illness. At the same time, however, Disney officials said they would monitor the situation and, quote, adjust our operations, close quote, to accommodate recommendations from health agencies and state and federal authorities. Other Disney parks, including Shanghai, Hong Kong, and Tokyo, were also temporarily closed in response to coronavirus, and Walt Disney World in Florida was also shut down Thursday. That's incorrect. Walt Disney World was not shut down Thursday. I don't know why they said that. So they will be officially shutting down this Sunday. Walt Disney World in Florida has an extra day on hand rather than Disneyland shutting down tomorrow. Walt Disney World closing up shop coming this Sunday. So all things to consider that, Walt Disney World gets an extra day of theme park magic. So for anybody out there, they are fortunate, right? Or unfortunate, depending on how you look at things. Another story from KTLA here said, how was the final day at Disneyland? Well, fun trumps fear as fans flocked to Disneyland on the eve of the park's historically long closure. So as I had mentioned earlier, it stormed most of the day here in Southern California, and I know it washed out a lot of crowds that would have been at Disneyland, but that doesn't mean that people weren't there. Yes, there were still people there. Yes, there were plenty of kids that showed up. It says here, thousands flocked to Disneyland on Friday for glimpses of Mickey and Minnie and a ride on It's a Small World and a last trip to the Galaxy's Edge before a historically long closure because of the new coronavirus. It was a rare rainy day in Southern California, and visitors wearing sequined mouse ears and plastic raincoats sought to cram in all the rides, treats, and magic memories they could before the self-proclaimed happiest place on earth closes Saturday through the end of the month. There were limited outward signs of the virus, a woman using a bleach wipe on a table, conversations about the health crisis as people waited in lines for rides, but there were no warnings at the entrance about coronavirus or reminders to create social space with other patrons. Signs in restrooms urged visitors to wash their hands for 20 seconds, but didn't reference the virus. And there are no documented coronavirus cases from Disneyland. Reaction to the closure was mixed. Some said it was a good move to protect public health, while others thought it was overwrought. The decision roiled Rochelle Van Eedson and her family of 5, who traveled all the way from New Zealand for a 3-day vacation at Disneyland with plans to then take a week-long cruise to Mexico. They got less time at the park, and it's likely their cruise won't happen. As we had mentioned, Disney Cruise Line also shutting down. I don't know why, right at this point, with a huge uptick all of a sudden with coronavirus, I don't know why you would ever want to be on a cruise at the moment. That is a bastion for germs and just a petri dish, if you will, of potential grossness if that, cruise line itself doesn't already have strong health standards. So Disney Cruise Line, probably one of the best when it comes to cleanliness, and even they are shutting down. Quote, "We've promised the kids this trip for years and years and years," said Eatson, age 46. "We've been through earthquakes and wildfires and even mosque shootings, and this was their reward. And now our 3-day pass has turned into a 2-day trip to Disneyland, and we're absolutely gutted." Quote, "I think it's just a major overreaction on the part of everybody," she said. Christina, is that Pailas? 24, and Gary Moreno, 28, made the 5-hour drive from Hollister, California on Thursday with their 5-year-old son, only to learn soon after arriving at their hotel that their planned 2-day visit would be cut short. They immediately raced over to the park and returned Friday to board Dumbo's Flying Elephant ride and to try to meet Donald Duck. Quote, "We're just making the best out of it." She added that the lines were exceptionally short for rides, though it was hard to know if the rain or fear of the virus was the reason. I think it's a little bit of both. Disneyland fans normally can bank on the park being open regardless of what's going on in the world around it. The park closed only a handful of times in 65 years and never for more than a day, said Jason Schultz, supervisory archivist at the Richard Nixon Presidential Library and Museum and unofficial Disney historian, who wrote Jason's Disneyland Almanac. Well, that sounds interesting, doesn't it? The last closure was after the terror attacks on September 11, 2001, and a Disneyland spokesperson declined to comment about previous closures or the park's final day before it temporarily closes. I don't know why they declined to comment. That seems odd to me. I don't know why you would say no. This is an opportunity to say, here's what's important to us and here's why. And if you comment on closures before, you can just kind of emphasize how important this one is. I don't know why they would decline. Walt Disney Company announced the closure of Disneyland on Thursday, shortly after the California governor's news conference on his executive order recommending against any non-essential gatherings of more than 250 people. Universal Studios Hollywood and other theme parks also announced closures, and Florida's Disney World plans to shutter on Monday. So this is KTLA again, who in the last story said Disney World shut down yesterday. I guess they got their wires crossed. Life in the final hours before the closure carried on as usual, with families checking mobile phones for the shortest wait times, just 5 minutes for the classic It's a Small World, and 10 to meet Minnie Mouse herself. Ivan Moore, age 46, of Chandler, Arizona, wound up at the theme park with his family after a memorial service for his cousin memorial service for his cousin was canceled, in Northern California because of concerns about gathering elder members of the family together as the virus spread. I've been hearing about something like that happening more and more, where elderly individuals and like especially nursing homes and stuff like that, where there's a real fear of all of those folks being so close together. And so now arrangements are being made to move folks over a certain age sort of out of the same vicinity of potentially other people who may be similar or close to them in age. Ivan says here he already had time off of work, so the family headed to Disneyland with plans to visit Galaxy's Edge, the new Star Wars attraction. Moore commended the resort for making the move to protect the most vulnerable, saying, "You've got a pandemic going on, whether or not it's going to spread faster or not doesn't matter. This helps," he said, of closing the park. And it might be good news because this in from Fox 11, it says here 9 coronavirus cases were reported in Orange County. So you remember potentially yesterday, if you were with us during our extended coverage in our live stream, we were talking about how there were indeed cases in Orange County. But when I went to the live map of the coronavirus in real time, there was nothing in Southern California. So I think they were updating it as there were a couple different times today where it wasn't necessarily available. So I think things are spreading so quickly that they're updating as they go. But 9 coronavirus cases have been reported so far in Orange County, home of Disneyland. It says here the number of active coronavirus cases in Orange County rose to 9 on Friday, and county officials said they will henceforth provide daily online updates about the status of the illness locally. Supervisor Andrew Doe said 6 of the cases have been fully confirmed, while 3 other people have tested positive for the illness locally, although the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention had not yet confirmed the results, and no details about the new patients were immediately provided. The 9 cases is an increase of 3 from Wednesday, when only 6 local cases were reported. Of those 6, county officials said 5 were travel-related, and 1 was a case of person-to-person spread. Doe said the county will provide daily updates online about COVID-19 on a website that will be updated at 5 p.m. each day. The website is ochealthinfo.com/novel-coronavirus. Doe, vice chairman of the board of supervisors, said Wednesday the county will cancel all, quote, non-essential county meetings and events. Isn't that most county meetings? Anyway, what am I saying? Officials are doing what they can to, quote, allow employees who can work from home the opportunity to do so, end quote, Doe said. County officials will also do what they can to accommodate paid time off for workers who have to care for someone stricken with the virus, or employees have to stay home to watch children if schools are closed. So that's a really big thing that also happened here in Southern California. It was announced today that starting Monday, schools across the Los Angeles Unified School District are going to be closing. That is a lot of kids suddenly turned back over to their parents. And, if you are somebody who has not been sent home, maybe you don't have the ability to work from home, this is something that is really going to be difficult and really quite a struggle for anybody that doesn't have the means to take care of their kids while they, kind of just expected them to be in school. So this is going to be a real hardship, I think, for a lot of people, especially in LA County. And, those parents that live paycheck to paycheck, I don't know what they're supposed to do. I know that the LA Unified is making special arrangements for buses and special arrangements for meals to still be served at different sort of community centers and areas where no more than I think 100 people will meet at a time. So they're really trying to keep things beneath that 250 executive order cutoff here in the state of California. It is sad, Catherine. Yeah, it's tough. Catherine and Chad, I know it's tough to see something like that, and unfortunate to know that these kids might have to look after themselves. I just don't. Hopefully they have family members that can come over and take care of them. There's also real discussion as to whether or not learning can continue, education can continue during this time while they are at home, because for the better part of a month, removing kids from the school system is going to be really difficult to try and get that time back. It's going to delay the entire educational calendar year. So all things that have to be sorted out in the coming days. From WDWinfo.com, we move along here with Disney Cruise Line details regarding their refund policy on canceled cruises. Tom Bell writes, Disney Cruise Line announced yesterday that they will be suspending all future sailings starting March 14th. That's tomorrow, ladies and gentlemen. And continuing through the end of the month, we now have more details about what cruises are affected and how refunds will be handled. The Disney Dream left today from Port Canaveral on a 3-night sailing, set to return on March 16th. The Disney Fantasy will return to Port Canaveral on March 14th, and the Disney Magic docks in Miami on the same day. The Disney Wonder is currently on westbound Panama Canal cruise, set to arrive in San Diego on March 20th, and as of now, the following sailings have been canceled. Wow, look at that. Among all 4 Disney ships for the rest of the month, all the way up until and even into the first week of April, the Disney Magic, Disney Wonder, Disney Dream, and Disney Fantasy all having their sailings canceled. My goodness. You think about how many people are on a Disney cruise at a time. I mean, that's, roughly 2,000, 3,000 people, depending on the ship size and when the ship was created. So that's a lot of folks in addition to 1,000 plus crew members. So at any given time, again, I go back to the idea that you're kind of in a petri dish on a cruise line. Even though Disney's standards are really high when it comes to cleanliness on board their cruise ships, this is something that can be, even with the best of intentions, can definitely still be a place where you get infected, where you come across people that are part of that cross section of the world, right? They're international visitors. They're people that are taking their dream vacation on perhaps a ship called the Dream, and they come across to you, and maybe you put your hand on a railing that perhaps carried a strain, or perhaps carried that germ, and there you go. It's as easy as that. You touch your face and off you go. You rub your eyes and off you go. So, except for the exceptions below, Tom writes, guests on these sailings will be offered a full refund or future cruise credit. Guests on certain cruises canceled with shorter notice will be offered a full refund or a 150% future cruise credit. Those sailings are Disney Magic, March 14th, Disney Fantasy, March 14th, and guests on the following cruises can receive a full refund or a 125% future cruise credit. Look at that. So, how I mentioned a little bit earlier that, those folks that were concerned about annual pass holders and what they were going to get in return, especially having lost out on this time. I mentioned that likely Disney is going to overcompensate to try and make up for this. Again, it's not totally their fault. I mean, they're doing this out of the public good and for the good of everybody. But at any rate, you already see here that 125% future cruise credit is being offered there. They don't have to, but they are, and that is, I think, why we all appreciate Disney so much. It's that Disney difference. And both the 125% and 150% future credit offers must be used for a future sailing I think that means within 15 months of the original sail date. So Disney Cruise Line there, as we see, updating their cancellation policies and all of their itineraries that are going to be canceled listed here. Big news on that cruise front. My goodness gracious. So Epic Gamer Squad says in chat, anyone who gets off the ship is going to be tested and placed into rooms depending on results. So fingers crossed. And also mentions that their cousin is on the Dream right now, and she is saying whenever she is backstage, she is wearing gloves and a face mask. My goodness. So to be a crew member on a Disney Cruise Line right now must be very frightening, knowing again that you're on a petri dish, a floating petri dish full of potential germs and full of potential illness strains and stuff like that. So my goodness, all the best to her in all of that. I can't even imagine, coming in contact with all those guests, coming in contact especially with all those kids on a day-to-day basis. I'm sure that any sort of handshaking and any sort of touching contact is off limits right now. And I definitely think about the poor performers that work as part of entertainment on these cruise ships and even in the parks right now, for another couple days. Everybody that works in entertainment, they, for the most part, if they're doing those meet and greets, unless they are costumed characters, they don't have a whole lot of defense in terms of everybody hugging and touching and people getting very close and breathing in their face, and so they're always exposed to any potential illness year round, let alone something that is just sort of growing so rapidly with COVID-19. So we certainly hope for the best for all of our poor entertainment cast members from coast to coast and out on those cruise ships that definitely are just trying to keep that magic alive, just trying to keep people happy. So at any rate, as I had mentioned a little bit earlier, Disney has halted film production on some live-action films due to the spread of coronavirus. This again from WDW Info. Jackie Gailey writes this. She's saying that according to CNBC, Disney has ceased the production of some of its live-action films for the time being as uneasiness over the coronavirus pandemic worsens. The following statement has been released from the company. It says, quote, "While there have been no confirmed cases of COVID-19 on our productions, after considering the current environment and the best interests of our cast and crew, we have made the decision to pause production on some of our live action films for a short time. We will continue to assess the situation and restart as soon as feasible," end quote. Upcoming live action films that will be affected include The Little Mermaid, Shang-Chi, and The Legend of the Ten Rings. Home Alone, The Last Duel, Nightmare Alley, as well as Peter Pan and Wendy and Shrunk. Anybody else know that they were working on Home Alone? Anybody know that? That's news to me. I'm kind of excited to hear another Home Alone is coming about. My goodness. And if Macaulay Culkin is not a part of this in some capacity, I will be very disappointed, and it'll be just like all those other, direct-to-DVD, direct-to-VHS sequels that they made afterwards in terms of the franchise. So, Home Alone, how about that? Earlier this week, the company announced that the release date on their live-action Mulan would be pushed back as well. The film was supposed to hit theaters on March 27th, and a new release date has yet to be announced. Yeah, Mulan, that's a tough one. I know that there was real concern about Mulan even being able to play to Asian audiences in general, and finally that was something that they thought they were going to be able to do in terms of premiering it for the Chinese market in particular, and now poor Mulan getting pushed back again. I can see Mulan, being pushed into a summer release and rather than a spring, and I think that might even give it an even bigger platform. And that is assuming, of course, that Mulan is going to end up being something that will be, able to have a summer release, because I know that Disney typically has kind of back-to-back, beginning of summer, end of summer releases, so you don't want to clutter the market either with too many films. So having that staying power is really important, and not being market share clipped by your own franchise, your own Disney film franchise. I mean, that's really important too. So from a business perspective, I know that they usually have these things laid out well in advance, but there are certain movies that are coming out later this year that they can certainly push, and they don't necessarily need to have debut when they're about to debut. And I'm sure there's a lot of money wrapped up in that I don't understand, but for the most part, it'll give Mulan, I think if they can push it to summer, it'll give Mulan that much bigger spotlight that I think a live action adaptation of an animated flick deserves. So interesting to hear that all the production halts on some of these big live action films because of the coronavirus. Once again, Little Mermaid, Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, Home Alone, The Last Duel, Nightmare Alley, as well as Peter Pan and Wendy and Shrunk. So I believe Shrunk is the live action film that's coming that is bringing Rick Moranis out of retirement. I don't know if anybody heard about that, but Rick Moranis from the Honey, I Shrunk the Kids series, who has been noticeably absent from all things Hollywood for the last, I want to say 2 decades now. He's coming out of retirement for a new sort of reboot, if you will, but a new spin on Honey, I Shrunk the Kids franchise, and it'll be nice to have him back. It'll be great to see Rick Moranis back in the swing of things finally. So it's been a while, you know. All right, so this here was the update that Walt Disney World pushed forth today. This was definitely something that I wanted to make sure we covered. So it does end up dotting the I's and crossing the T's of a lot of different things, so that you can understand exactly what you need to do. So if you were somebody that was, going to Walt Disney World, you were somebody that was going to have to, spend some time during the next 2 weeks and 3 days at the resort, this is something that will hopefully answer a lot of your questions. This is officially from Walt Disney World itself, and they say, in an abundance of caution and in the best interest of our guests and cast members, we are proceeding with the closure of our theme parks at Walt Disney World Resort beginning March 16th through the end of the month. Walt Disney Company will pay its cast members during the closure period. Disney Resort hotels in Disney Springs will remain open until further notice. We will continue to stay in close contact with appropriate officials and health experts, and below you'll find information on impacts to current and upcoming plans. Please continue to check this page for additional updates. They say here, when it comes down to tickets, that common question, can I get a refund on my ticket? They say unexpired multi-day theme park tickets with unused days or date-specific theme park tickets with a date on or before March 31st, 2020 will automatically be extended to use any date through December 15th, 2020. If you are unable to visit by December 15th, 2020, you may apply the value of a wholly unused ticket toward the purchase of a ticket for a future date. Florida resident Discover Disney tickets may be used through July, and guests who have purchased tickets for Disney After Hours, Disney Villains After Hours, and Disney Early Morning Magic from March 16th through March 31st will be automatically refunded. So yeah, that's another thing to really touch on there. These private parties that have sort of become a way of the Disney resorts, now especially Walt Disney World. Disneyland has only a handful. Disney World seems to be pumping these suckers in whenever they can, all over the place. Every couple weeks or so, there seems to be another party, and if it's not a seasonal party like your Halloween parties, your Christmas parties, they're doing these after darks. They're doing these after hours, I should say, either themed to villains or just sort of turning the park over for additional hours at night with sort of the promise of less wait, sometimes some unique snacks, and then of course the early morning magic. So an upcharge that has come along in recent years that we're seeing more and more of. So nice to hear that they will be automatically refunded for those. Now, it looks like annual passes for Disney World. It says, how does the closure of Disney World impact annual passes? Walt Disney World annual passes will be extended by the number of days the parks are closed, March 16th through March 31st. So, there's, I guess, an official answer from the source, from Disney itself, that they will be extending the number of days that the parks are closed. So, extended by, the number of days that the parks are closed. So, that's an official statement right there. Even though it's Disney World based and not necessarily Disneyland based, I'm willing to bet they're going to do the same for Disneyland if this is the way it's going to be reflected out in Orlando. And as far as resorts go, the question might come to mind of, I have a future stay at a Disney Resort hotel while the park is closed. What does that mean for my vacation? Well, it says here, guests who have not checked in for stays between March 16th through March 31st may modify or cancel their Disney Resort room reservation or Walt Disney Travel Company package up to their original check-in date. If no action is taken, Disney will automatically process a refund to the original form of payment within 7 days of the original check-in date. If you did not book through Disney directly, you need to contact your travel professional. Another question here of, what if I want to cancel a Disney Resort hotel reservation after the parks reopen? They say they will waive all Disney-imposed change and cancellation fees up to the date of check-in and all the way through June 30th, 2020. when it comes to dining and other experiences. It says here, hey, I have a prepaid dining reservation or experience reservation like Droid Depot during the time when the parks are closed. Am I going to receive a refund? They say, yeah. All prepaid dining and experience reservations will be automatically refunded if scheduled between March 16th through March 31st. And what happens if, two dining reservations that required a credit card at the time of booking? They say reservations made at locations impacted by the closure will not be charged a cancellation or no-show fee. Could you imagine them doing that? Could you imagine just charging you for not showing up while they were closed? I mean, oh my goodness, that would be insane. So, at any rate, those are some of the bigger updates from today that I definitely wanted to touch on and discuss. I know there's been a lot going on in terms of developments and in terms of what needs to happen for people that may have had vacations scheduled. A lot of unanswered questions still even. I like to make sure that we definitely display the different numbers that you can contact if you have questions regarding your, we'll start with Disneyland, your Disneyland Resort trip. You can go ahead and reach out here for reservations and tickets. Tickets has its own special number, 714-781-4636 is the number. And for hotel reservations, you want to reach out 714-956-MICKEY. That's 714-956-6425. Vacation packages in general for Walt Disney Travel Company, that's the number we've heard thrown around the most, and that's 714-520-5060. So I'd recommend that if you're somebody who was planning to come on over to Disneyland, you'll want to reach out to probably not the vacation package number. You'll probably want to reach out to hotel reservations first and see if they can help you on their end. You're probably more likely to get through to them than you are the vacation package number, because that goes to the call center that is just being inundated right now, because that's the number they're using for all their talking points. So hotel reservations, 714-956-MICKEY, or if you have ticket issues, 714-781-4636. We'll jump on over here to Walt Disney World's number listing, and if it's about tickets, give them a call, 407-939-7679. If you're somebody that has some concerns about your hotel reservations, that's 407-939-1936. And then on top of all of that, if you're an annual pass holder and still have questions that we haven't answered here tonight, go ahead and give them a call, 407-560-7277. And for Disney Cruise Line, if you had a cruise coming up and you were on that list that we covered of all kinds of cancellations throughout the month of March and even into that first week of April, you can give them a call, or you can email them directly. I know that they probably are going to be able to respond to you a little bit quicker via email than by phone, just because that phone is going to be heavily impacted. So that number is going to be 1-800-951-3532. That's 1-800-951-3532. All right, so those are the numbers. Those are the details of what's happening today. 9 confirmed cases of coronavirus in Orange County, right next to Disneyland. We covered a lot in terms of what was going on at Walt Disney World and what we need to consider in terms of canceling trips or maybe rescheduling. And on top of that, we touched on everything else in terms of annual passes, everything else in terms of hotel stays. Disney Springs is remaining open in Orlando, Downtown Disney remaining open in Anaheim, Universal Studios closing on both coasts. We also have news that SeaWorld is closing its parks domestically, and in addition to that, Knott's Berry Farm here in Southern California will also be closing after the weekend. The one last thing that I wanted to touch on here, some good news, and that is during Disneyland's extended break, this coming from InsideTheMagic.net, they mention that the resort is going to donate excess food during the park closure. So obviously it takes a lot of food to keep that resort running. Food is a huge part of the Disneyland Resort experience, and so the story says here, when the Disneyland Resort in Anaheim, California announced that it would close its gates on account of the novel coronavirus known as COVID-19, someone had the good sense to ask, wait, what are we going to do with all this food? Disneyland isn't just going to be stuck with the surplus of theme park food, but also banquet meals and other meats, fruits, and vegetables utilized in the theme park restaurants. It was going to go bad. Well, someone else helped come up with a brilliant solution. They said, donate it. So according to Disney, the Disneyland Resort has an ongoing commitment to reducing food waste, and during the temporary closure of Disneyland Park and California Adventure Park, we'll be donating excess food inventory to Second Harvest Food Bank of Orange County. While closely following the food safety guidelines, excess inventory of dairy, fruit, vegetables, packaged goods, and banquet meals is being donated to Second Harvest Food Bank, whose mission is to end hunger in Orange County. This is not the first time Disneyland has donated food. The resort has been operating a food donation program there since 2014, which ensures that prepared, unserved food is donated to people in the local area who need it. And last year, the Disneyland Resort donated over 20,000 meals to Second Harvest Food Program of Orange County. Disneyland also has an environmental program called the Food Scraps Division Program, which is tasked with reducing food waste. So some good news to end everything on, even though there has been an uptick in confirmed cases when it comes down to all of the coronavirus confirmed cases across the country. It is nice to hear that even though Disneyland is shutting down and Walt Disney World is shutting down, that Disneyland is going to be able to donate all of that surplus food that they, would have otherwise just thrown away. So nice to hear that they are going to be doing that with their surplus. All right, my friends, this has been a lot of fun. Make sure you are all connected to us in every which way at Kingdom Report Live on social media. You can also make sure that you've got that subscribe button clicked with the little bell notification icon turned on so that whenever we go live, whenever we have some updates, you will be kept in the loop as to what's shaking out there. And keep in mind that tomorrow is our big live show that we have every week, every Saturday at 3 p.m. Eastern, 12 p.m. Pacific. It's Kingdom Report Live. It's a full-blown news video broadcast, so you'll get to see my ugly mug in person. I'm joined by Tyler Crouch, Katrina Manzone, theme park experts, as well as Garrett Hassel, our Walt Disney World reporter, who will be live for the final day of Walt Disney World Park operations. We are going to send them on out to Epcot for what will be the last day in March for Epcot's operations. So it's going to be a fun broadcast and at the same time a very serious one. The other thing that I want to mention is for tomorrow's broadcast, we are starting the show with a live interview with someone who is currently under quarantine with the coronavirus. He is from Southern California. He's currently being quarantined in Nebraska after contracting the coronavirus illness on a cruise ship. And he's got a lot to share. We can't wait to talk to him, get some perspective on the matter, and really help everybody understand what it is they can do to better prepare themselves. And hopefully, nobody will catch it, but what they can do to better prepare themselves and also ensure that they are in a good place if they do contract the virus, things they can do to combat it and overcome it, much like he has been for the last 2 months or so. So he's got a lot to share, a lot to talk about. We can't wait to have Carl Goldman on tomorrow on Kingdom Report Live, 3 p.m. Eastern, 12 p.m. Pacific, streaming live right here on YouTube, as well as Facebook Live over at Kingdom Report Live on Facebook. All right, ladies and gentlemen, like I said, it's been fun. Appreciate everybody participating in chat that was there, and wishing you all much safety as you go about your daily lives. Wash those hands, don't touch that face, and keep your spirits up. The happiness of Disney only lives on because of people like you and me, and we're going to make sure that we march right on into the beginning of April. Still perky, still happy, still magical, still protecting that magic. We're going to make sure that everybody, remains in good spirits, even though all the toilet paper is gone and people are acting like it's the end of the world as we know it. Keep your spirits up and recognize that far more people are coming out of treatments for coronavirus fully recovered than are, passing from this and are being adversely affected. So while it is certainly killing far more people than it should, we are still seeing way more people coming out the other side in good condition. So once again, it's been a great pleasure. I hope you have a wonderful Friday night, and be sure to tune in tomorrow for Kingdom Report Live. Have yourselves a magical evening. Bye-bye.